Hey everybody, welcome to Combo. This is a YouTube drawing show where we make a collaborative combo drawing. We use digital drawing tools like Aggie, this website, to draw in the same space at the same time, have a conversation and a good time. There's no pressure to draw a certain quality and no pressure to finish the drawing, but that's always a nice bonus when we do. I make these videos to help sell comics. I'm running a Dark Mouse Kickstarter right now. Go to eyedraw.com, EYEDRAUGH.com, or my Instagram at iDraw to find all that information there. Hopefully it's funding well at this point. Today, I'm going to be drawing with Karl Altstaetter. Karl, introduce yourself, say hi. What's the pitch for Karl?
Hi, I'm Karl Altstaetter. I'm a toy designer at Spin Master. I'm currently working on the Batman toys, and I have a history of working in the comic industry. I've worked for Marvel, DC, Image Comics. I've self-published for a lot of years. So yeah, I try to be a creative person.
Try to be a creative person. I realized that I wasn't screen sharing a moment ago, but I am now. Is my screen sharing messing with your drawing setup at all?
No, it doesn't look like it.
Okay, cool. So you should be seeing this in two spots, one the Zoom meeting and then the actual space that you're going to be drawing in.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, cool. So right now you said you're at Spin Master?
Yeah, I am a project designer over there, and I work on the Batman toys, which is awesome. It's fun. If you're gonna work on any toys, they should be Batman toys. That's all I'm saying.
Nice. And are these toys based on the new movie, or are these like some random, not random, but like scheduled toys that were already set to come out?
Well, it's a combination of stuff. They are based. We do have a line that just came out. That's the movie, the Batman.
Sure.
And then we have kind of a regular Batman line that's available all year round. And they're really kind of created, for a mass audience of younger kids. So it's not like they're the super high-end collectibles. They're really made for kids to enjoy and have fun with. So it's a little bit more exaggerated, a little bit more over the top, which is for a toy designers a lot of fun.
Good. Cool. Yeah. No, yeah. There's toys for that for all different purposes. There's toys for the collectors and there's toys that are made to be opened and beat up and have fun with. And it sounds like that's what you're doing, and that's going to be the most fun for a kid. Cool, man. I remember when I was real small, my dad made these like cardboard play sets basically, and he like put them on like plywood. We would hang them on the wall when we were done playing with them, but like you take them down. He made a bat cave, and he made like places to like a little like garage for the Batmobile and stuff. I remember being bummed out that Batman's legs didn't bend in the chair that my dad had made for him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny you say that, because like when I grew up, we didn't have a lot of money, so a lot of the toys I made for myself. I would cut out little figures or build figures and stuff like that. And even to this day, I did a Batman play set, and you build a foam core model. So you actually build it kind of similar to what you're talking about, what your dad did. And literally you're like, here's the garage for the Batmobile. Here's, the jail for the bad guys. And you build it from scratch. And I think, what you're talking about, where a figure is interfacing with a piece of it, that needs to be able to do it in a way that the kid can make that leap for it from an imagination standpoint. And that's something that from my childhood, and kind of similar to what you're describing in your childhood, is you don't need a whole lot to make that leap, but it just needs to work in the world that you've created for your little plane setup. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I mean that really resonates with me, because I think that's a big part of. You can do all these different things with toys nowadays, but I think that's the kind of moment that you really want to capture with a kid, is where they bring their own imagination to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So we are drawing on not to turn too hard in topics, but like as far as like creating your own play sets, we're gonna play around with this website Aggie right now. We're gonna create a drawing here. Normally I start out with like a color base, and then we kind of just do whatever we want. We talk for about 2 seconds about what we want to draw. you've been drawing, I imagine you've been drawing Batman for a long time. Are you in the mood to draw more Batman? You also draw like something that that I really enjoy whenever I see you at cons is you always have some kind of giant piece with you know, like 100 different characters on there from like all these different properties. That's just like stuff that you like drawing, it seems like. Do you want to draw something like that? Did you have your heart set on anything in particular?
Um, you know, it would be fun to. I was kind of hoping maybe I could draw your character.
Yeah. All
Yeah,
right. I'm
that
down.
was kind of what I was hoping, like, because I think that would be fun to do, you
Cool.
know?
Yeah, let's do it. So you're gonna draw a dark mouse then.
Yeah.
Nice. And the other thing I was gonna say, how do you feel about a three-tone drawing, or you want to just do black and white? The only reason I say three-tone is that I want to see how far we can get in this hour, and like with a three-tone, we'd be limited on colors, which is limits us on colors, but also we might get more done on a drawing.
I'm gonna leave that up to you, man. It sounds exciting either way, dude.
Okay, cool.
It's gonna be, yeah, fun to try.
Cool, cool, cool. All right. I like the enthusiasm. So let's see. I don't know about green. You know, let's just start on white first. Go from there. Okay, so you're going to be drawing Dark Mouse then. Are you familiar with Dark Mouse? Do you need any reference?
Yeah, I do. I can see the picture behind you in your Zoom, but if you have an image you could drop in, that would be cool.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to give me a quick synopsis of where it's at, because I've seen you draw him before and I've seen him, but I don't know if I've seen a full book of him.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So I'll send you links and stuff when we're done here. But yeah, Dark Mouse is let's see, can I just drag and drop in here? Do I have to use my mouse? Are you still on the image on the drawing?
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, cool. So sometimes when I drop in stuff, people get kicked out, or when I import rather. So that's him. That's from the current book that I'm running a Kickstarter on right now. He's basically the synopsis for him is like the synopsis for the book or the elevator pitch is it's Sin City with mice. So he's basically Marv but a mouse, if that makes sense.
Yeah, dude, that makes total sense.
Let's see what else can I drop in. We'll do this from another book I'm working on with him. Let's see, projects, Dark Mouse. This is actually from Inktober. Let's see.
So can I jump in already, or
Yeah, you can get started, do what you need to do. So if you're doing Dark Mouse, I might do a background for you with Dark Mouse in it. Let's see. Check this guy in there. Try and keep my stuff out of your way.
That's a cool panel right there.
Thanks. That's from Inktober 2018.
So if you don't mind me asking, what was your inspiration
For this guy? Basically, I've talked about it a lot, but basically, this is a character that I was drawing just like imagining if I didn't have any inhibitions, responsibilities, or anything like that, like how would I operate in the world? You know, like if I was just crass and didn't care about people. And I started making comics. Like the first comic of Dark Mouse, he goes to Vegas, gets drunk, gets in a fight, has a three-way, gets abandoned in his hotel room. And I think gets robbed also, or that comes later. The next one, he gets into like a confrontation while he's crossing the street. And he takes a dump on somebody's car. Like just like, you know, the like how would you act like if you didn't have like empathy? And so he was, you know, I don't know if that makes him a sociopath, but he's definitely a jerk. And like I have like a whole arc in my head of like how he's gonna grow and what his character development is gonna be like. But that's how it first came about. And actually, like the first time like I had books of him at a con, like I'm pretty sure you were there. And the first time I actually did a con, you were like right across from us. And like ever
Yeah.
since then, man, you've been really generous. Like you participated in a panel that I tried to moderate, and there were like, 4 people in the audience, and you were like still like really generous. You brought comic books for the people in the crowd. You're doing this. You're hanging out with me on a Sunday morning, so I really appreciate you lending your time and everything to me over the years.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate you saying that. I mean, truth be told, I mean, the first time I met you, I was like, this is a dude who is like a serious artist, a real artist, like, and I thought this is somebody like I want to associate with. I want to associate with real artists.
I
So
appreciate that.
that's always been a thing for me, you know, is I want, it's like they say, it's like surround yourself with the people you want to be like, you know what I mean? You want to be associated with people who do art and do art because they love it. So that always inspired me for sure with you.
I appreciate that.
I think the first time I saw you too, I think did you take a light post or did you take you took some sort of thing from the city of Long Beach, I think.
Oh, no, we didn't take a light post. What do we do? Yeah, I was doing a slightly more rambunctious stuff then. Me and my buddy Evan, who was also tabling, like we happened to just like walk around Long Beach, like looking for a bar and whatnot at this first convention we were doing, Long Beach Comic Con, if memory serves. And while we were there, at like the first night, the show ends, go back to our hotel room, like put stuff down or whatever, and then go out looking for a bar. And then we realized that we're close to the aquarium, and somebody's advertising that oh man, I'm remembering so much. Like somebody's advertising that the aquarium of the Pacific right there is having like some celebration, some event that night. So like we go there, and the guy at the front door is like, oh, tickets are, $50, whatever. But it was like people were leaving. And so like we told him that, we were like, well, people are leaving, it's almost over. He's like, yeah, but I still got to charge. And then we just like we did one of those moves, and like I'm like, I was drunk at the time, so like I'm like half remembering this, but like I feel like we just like kept looking him in the eye and then just like walked in, like even though he was telling us like, hey, you got to pay. So like we walk in, everybody's leaving, the band is taking down their stuff, and there's pumpkins on the stage, and we were like, hey, like what are you guys doing with these pumpkins? And they were like, oh, I don't know, we'll probably put them in the back or give them away. And we were like, oh, cool. So we just take a couple of pumpkins.
Yeah, okay, I remember
leave.
this. The pumpkin part.
Yeah, we take the pumpkins, and that's it.
No, but didn't you take like some sort of cone or something too, man?
A cone?
Yeah, maybe I'm just misremembering it, but
You may this might be somebody else. they're
no, because you
like
across from me, and I do remember the pumpkin now,
yeah,
but
like we took pumpkins. Oddly enough, we ran into Thomas Jane on the street after that, because he was promoting some movie, and we were like, whoa, you're Tom Jane. And then oh, a light post. Now I'm like there must be something to that. I'm gonna have to talk to Evan and say like, hey, did we steal like city property in Long Beach at some
that was
point?
like a street sign or something.
A street sign?
Yeah.
That's more, yeah, that's more plausible. Maybe. I'm just gonna say yes, so I sound like a badass. Yeah, we took all kinds of shit off the street, and then we took it into the convention, and we tried
Yeah,
selling it.
that's a better story.
There you go. All right, I'm drawing this big guy from this page down here. And he'll be just kind of menacing in the background. And also, like, we can feel free to like draw over or under anything that I'm putting on the page, and kind of the more this overlaps, the more it's successful in my mind. And it doesn't have to, but it's always kind of cool when it does. Yeah, I really like this tool just because it lets you do this, and it lets you drop in these images pretty easily. So you were saying that you use a different platform at work where you guys try and do this, but it doesn't quite draw this way. How are you liking this so far?
Oh, it's pretty cool, man.
Good.
It's I mean, I think in terms of collaborating, like real time, that's pretty wild, you know?
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
Same.
like a powerful tool when you think about it.
Yeah, this is actually I don't know if it's owned or it's just sponsored, but if you're familiar with the concept artist Bobby Chu,
Oh
he
yeah, huh?
yeah, yeah, this is something that he promotes heavily or works with or partners with. I don't know what their relationship is, but it used to be called Magma the first time I saw it at Lightbox, and like after that I started drawing with my buddy Evan. We would like hang out a couple of times on in 2020 and 2021, just like hanging out and drawing like this, having mimosas or whatever. But um, it's a real handy tool, and like since then they've changed the name, and I think they've added a couple more features. I'm sure they have. It just like it's like not obvious, but yeah, I really like it. Did you ever watch Bob Ross?
Yeah, like back in the day.
Okay, like when it was like actually airing and whatnot.
Yeah, when I was like a kid, I think when it was on.
Oh, okay.
But like, I mean, I do remember, it's weird, man, because like back in the day, like, you know, you didn't really run across as many people who called themselves creative. Like when I was growing up, like being somebody who was creative was like, oh, that person's a deadbeat or something like that. Like you didn't
Sure.
really you didn't have people that people who did it only purely as like a hobby, and that was really like well defined. Like I remember, my grandmother would paint, but that was kind of considered a pursuit that you did as like, oh, so uh, you know I'm
Like
done
playtime.
Saturday, and I'll do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And originally I wasn't going to get into a creative field. I originally wanted to be a history teacher and teach political science. That was my big dream.
Really?
Yeah. And because I really loved history, I thought I could be good at teaching. And then I got into art sort of. I always drew like when I was a kid because um, frankly, like I said earlier, we didn't have much money. I was raised by my grandmother, and so um, you know, I would take back in the day when they would have like paper bags, I would cut open the paper bags and make like a bunch of
Take.
paper, cutting it out and drawing the inside of the paper bags, and so that's where I would entertain myself by drawing, and so I started reading like hand me down comics that people had, and then at school, I met a couple people that were into comic books, and then that's when I started like trying to draw them all the time because I just thought it was like a fun thing. And then, I when I was in college, I decided to. I was always like all through high school, starting like when I was 13, I was sending stuff to Marvel because I kind of had this side dream that I would do comic books.
Sure.
But I never really I felt like if I really, it's one of those things where you feel like, oh, if I really try hard, I might be able to do this. So when I was around 18, one of the editors at Marvel contacted me from one of my submissions and said, hey, if you start doing some different stuff with your work, you have some. To do this.
Nice.
So I ended up getting together with a group of artists in San Diego, and um, it was called Homage Studios, and I worked with them for about what ended up being about 4 years. And I kept telling myself, the reason why I did it was because I thought, hey, you know what, I can make a little bit of money doing this because I was, putting myself through school, and then
Uh,
okay, I'll make a little bit of money, and then I'll come back next semester, and then I just ended up continuously working, and I never ended up going back to school.
Man, that's such a trip that you say that. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm gonna pick your brain some more about that. But that's so close, or a very similar way that I ended up where I am in like the corporate world. It was like I had always had the dream of of being the commercial artist, the professional artist, or like even like the weird artist, but who gets the commercial gigs anyways.
Yeah.
Um, but my parents had done a really good job of instilling in me, like get like a full-time 9 to 5 gig first, and then like once the art stuff takes off, then like then make that jump. But like I kept like I'm decent at my 9 to 5 gig, so like I never left. So like I'm like making art, making comics on the side, and as of like 2016, it's been the side gig that pays for itself, which is cool. Like that wasn't always the case, or maybe like 2015. But yeah, that's it's something that like that I never left is my office job. This year I'm making like some deliberate decisions and strategic choices to try and pull that off though. But um, tell me, we're basically getting into the saga of Karl, or the origin of Karl. Like you said Homage Studios. How do you spell that, or am I saying that right?
Yeah, it's HOMAGE. And uh it's funny you bring this up though about like your parents, so like I said, I was raised by my grandmother, and she, you know kind of, my grandmother's Mexican, and she grew up in an environment where you didn't really have thoughts of like, well, I'm gonna go make comic books or something like that. That
Right,
that just didn't even fit with her reality. You know what I mean?
right.
So I remember that was like a thing too. She was kind of like, it's cool for you to indulge in this, but like when the time comes, you're gonna have to stop doing that and do something,
Yep,
you know, more realistic, as she would say.
yep.
And I was like, I'm cool with that. I'm cool with doing something quote unquote more realistic, right?
Right.
But I wanted to know, you know what I mean? I wanted to know if I could do it. And that was like a whole thing for me. It was like I just wanted to see if I could have something that interested me in that way and see if I could make it happen. And that's something that I've come across a lot with people is they have something that they know they really want to do, but they also know that it's something that's really hard to do. It's also something that's going to take a lot of sacrifice to do.
Yep.
And I think that's the real um, that's the real limiter for people. It's like, how much are you willing to sacrifice of creature comforts per se in
Yep.
order to make something happen, you know? And it's like there's also like, I think, kind of depending on how you were raised and what culture you were raised in, that has a lot to do also with your perception of what is achievable and what isn't.
Absolutely. Context is so important. Like uh what's that idea? Like that if you hear something long enough, you start to believe that it's true. Like, oh, like you can't make a living at art. It's like, oh, I guess you can't make a living in art. Better go get this job.
Yeah. I remember an uncle of mine, I was drawing, and he, for a living, he worked he was in the union, and they did welding. They were pipe fitters and stuff like that.
Hmm,
And that's a hard ass job. You know what I mean?
sure.
And I have respect for anybody that does that. But I remember him, telling me, you know, you need to put all that stuff down. That's a waste of your time.
Hmm,
You know, um, over the years, even after you establish yourself doing something, still, you have people who are like, oh, you should go get a real job. And I'm like, this is a real job. It is a full on job, man, that you get paid for. And
Yep.
that's something that not to go off on a tangent here, but something also that always really concerns me in terms of how creative people sort of interact in the corporate space or just in general is I think even at corporations, people to a certain extent feel like you're lucky to have a job being creative, and they assign a value to that, and they assign a like, oh, it's okay, you don't have to have all the same treatments as, say, somebody who does, I don't know, sales or marketing or something like that, you know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah.
And I feel that there's this sort of a little bit of animosity when people are like, oh, I did something I had to do and you're doing something you wanted to do, you know?
Yep.
And I've always found that to be very odd, because I'm like, did you know, they don't always see the sacrifices that people make to do those things, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. There's the term starving artist for a reason. There's it ain't like, yeah, you design toys and you design Batman toys, and that on that level, just hearing like those, 8 words, that sounds really cool, but like you're still a human, you're working with other humans. Maybe there's not all super fun people in the studio at some time. There's still like, it's a business, so there's an accounting department, there's management, you got to deal with people and personalities, and that's not always fun. So and
Yeah.
so didn't put paper in the copier, this person took my parking spot. That stuff still happens, and it's still a job. You gotta do your work, and if the drawings aren't selling, so to speak, that's a concern. And then you got to figure out like what the next move is, or if like you're like a contract artist, like doing like movies and whatnot, or storyboards. That's a lot of that is gig based, and so you just kind of you work for a few months, and then you're constantly pitching yourself for the next thing. It's a challenge. It's not like it's like, oh cool, yeah, you get to do something, but it doesn't mean it's all like, sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, what you're saying there is like 100% true, in the sense, I mean, there's also, when you're talking about where you're a freelancer and stuff like that, everyone's like, I'm not a freelancer, I'm full time there
Mhm.
at where I'm at right now. But over the years, I've freelanced quite a lot. And the biggest issue I've had is actually with the clients, and how they're almost like, well, when I really needed you, I was on you for a deadline, and now that I have the work, I'm very slow in paying, or stuff like that. You know what I
Oh
mean?
sure.
And that right there is, I think, comes back to what people kind of feel about creative people. Like,
Yep.
you should be happy, you should be lucky, you should be your god-given talent, you know what I mean? And all that stuff really, I mean, it bothers me so much when I hear people say stuff like that,
Yeah.
because I'm like, like you said, it's like, hey, creative people have bills, creative people have goals, and they want houses too, they've got kids and all that kind of thing. So yeah, it's weird having sort of something where, you creative endeavor where it has like all these kind of possibilities, yet the big limiter is how people sort of treat you, and how they may not respect what you do in the way that, you know they would say, okay, someone who's in a different profession but still in the same industry.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I see what you're saying now. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The God-given talent thing is always something for me. Like everyone says, not everyone, but there's, people when you're at conventions will stop by your table and say like, oh, like you're so lucky you can draw. It's like, well, it took me, 30 some odd years to get to this point. So I don't know if it was,
Yeah.
maybe there was some luck in there, but it's a lot of hard work too. There's a lot of time, practice, a lot of late nights, a lot of when you're a kid, not going outside and playing with everybody because you're inside drawing.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
man.
sacrifice.
Yep.
Uh, yeah, I mean, we've both done shows, and it's like WonderCon's coming up. Are you going to WonderCon?
I am going to WonderCon, Artist Alley B56, if memory serves. What about you?
I'm going to be there, and at Artist Alley D23.
D23. I'll stop by. Oh, that's funny. Nice. Did Disney get you your table or?
Yeah, they I'm paying them for the rights to
You're paying them.
that. Yeah,
That's how that works.
yeah. Just so that I could get those numbers and promote their show.
That's really funny. Man, I'm like really looking forward to that. That's gonna be my first big convention out in person after all this. Like I did Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario, which is just naturally smaller because of like it's in the IE, and it was also like in December, and like it wasn't a great time for a lot of people apparently. But I did that one, and I did a Dia de los Muertos like outdoor convention or outdoor festival rather.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really looking forward to this, to WonderCon, because it's more the thing that's right up my alley. Anyways, go on. So
But why do you feel it's right up your alley?
well, it's more on point. It's superheroes, it's pop culture, it's a comic book convention. Dia de los Muertos is it's fun. It's not what I'm focusing on right now, if that makes sense. Like I love drawing skulls. I love painting and ink drawings and stuff. Just like right now my brain is like full comic book mode.
Yeah.
Because I have the Kickstarter and I want to make that a success. But aside from that, no, yeah, I love any chance I can get to do art shows or public art, or make a paper mache skull or anything like that. Like I used to always take that advantage. Like going out and stealing pumpkins is something that I would do in a heartbeat normally, but right now, like I said, I'm really trying to focus on the comic book and commercial stuff to try and make that happen. That's all I mean by right up my alley. But otherwise, yeah, I love a weird art show. I love doing the quirky, eccentric stuff too. It's just that like that stuff will take time from the other things that I want to do also. That's talking about sacrifices. Like I would do before the pandemic, I would do every year there's this public art event in Pasadena called Bold Pass. Mm-hmm. And two years in a row or every other year, I don't remember what it was, but like I did two pieces there. They were both kind of like interactive stuff. One of them was like a augmented reality cardboard TV box thing. So I made this sculpture of cardboard boxes, painted them to look like TVs. And when you pointed your phone at those cardboard TV screens, your phone would actually animate the TV. So like whatever was on the screen, those cardboard pieces started going into like stop motion animation, which is super fun. I love art projects like that. The city cut a check for that, so that was cool. Anytime I can get paid to do art, that's
you're winning for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's like I tell my wife, like anytime I get a check for art, I'm like, hey, today I'm an artist. I'm like supporting us with this now, which is also not accurate. I just think that's like a fun thing to say. But when I do that stuff, that means that I'm not making my comic, and the next time I go to WonderCon, I'm still gonna be telling people when they say, hey, where's the next Dark Mouse? Like, I'm still working on it. Like, well, what did you do recently? Oh, I did this thing in Bold Pass. And they'd be like, oh, that's cool, and then not buy anything at the table. So like I don't want to make art for my table. I just kind of want to finish my books because I've got so many ideas for books.
Wow, man, that so Jeremy Burley, right?
I do.
Yeah. So, well, I figured you did. I just, I don't know why. Anyways.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So, anyways, he and I are forever discussing similar stuff to what you just said, where it's like you're at a show and you could have done, I mean, you could go to a comic show and be like, yeah, I just did they flew me to Paris and I did, a presentation there, and then you go to the comic show and you could tell that to 100 people in a row and they'd be like, that's cool, where's the comic, bro?
Right. That's cool. Can you draw me Batman?
yeah, they're just like, no, they don't even care, you know?
Yeah.
And that's something that Jeremy and I have discussed because Jeremy does a lot of stuff on YouTube, and he does a lot of stuff, and they're great videos. They're super informative, and I assume the people who are watching them are getting as much out of them as he's putting into them because there's a lot that he's putting in there, but at the same time, he and I've had this discussion of like, are you um, an artist who's making something, or are you somebody who's kind of presenting yourself as a guru, right? Like you're sort of presenting yourself as like, I'm someone who teaches you, I give you knowledge for free, and in
Ah,
exchange for the knowledge, you follow my work or purchase my work or support my work, you know?
sure.
And I have mixed feelings about that because I kind of, I think that it's great to contribute to, people learning about stuff and so forth and so on. But then it's to your point, it's like, I think people, you're almost in a way, it's like a bait and switch. You're like, here, I'm going to show you something. And then, but what I really am hoping for is for you to follow my work. And it's like, it's almost, I feel like it'd be better to make just more work, more of your work. You know what I mean? To
Sure.
kind of get that out there more where people are experiencing the core thing that you want them to experience, you know?
Right, right, right. Yeah, like don't man, I was just thinking about this before we jumped on. There's at some point like there's a little bit of what I'm about to say like happening with me making these videos. These videos really like are a means to an end. There was like some point in the past like 5 or 6 years where I was like, I really need to start a podcast because that's where like artists are like making connections, this and that. And there's some truth to that, but also like if I want to be making comics when I'm old and like living off that, or like something else that could sustain me, like drawing, I need to focus on that craft a little bit more and not the thing that's going to get people to the craft. Like right now, like the big thing is like, oh, hey, I have a Dark Mouse Kickstarter. Everyone should go support that, buy that. So like these videos are number one fun. I can draw and like hang out with people like you and learn some stuff, talk shop and just have a good time. But also this is hopefully a vehicle for people to get from this point A to point B, supporting the actual Kickstarter, which is really what I want. Like I spent the past couple of months finishing that comic book. It had been sitting on the shelf for so long, like during the pandemic, like so many different
Yeah.
things happened during the pandemic. And I know there are some people who are like, hey, I used the pandemic and I finished this movie or whatever it is. And like that just like wasn't the reality for so many people. But if I want people to come to the show and look at my comic, I need to be working on that comic, like which is just echoing what you're saying about Jeremy. If you're gonna be doing you're gonna be doing this thing in Paris, cool, man. Do that thing in Paris more. Like why are you going to the show? Like or do if you do both, like we can't always expect people at shows to know everything we're doing. Um,
Yeah.
that'd be nice,
But
but
I think it's like, well, I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons why I really wanted to draw your character versus drawing Batman. It's because I'm way more excited about what you're doing and what you're making.
oh
Just
man,
as a fan, right?
right
Like
right
if I
here, right
what's that?
right in the heart, right in the heart.
No,
Go on,
seriously
go on.
though, that's no BS. If I see you at a show, I want what you make. You know what I mean? Like as a person who, that's just my preference in terms of art. I'm way more interested in what that person has dreamt up of their own. And just quick, since I did mention Jeremy, you can find him at Optic House on
Yeah,
YouTube.
yeah. Plug the homies.
And That's Jeremy Burley, Jeremy with a G. Definitely should check out his videos. He does a lot of deep dives about drawing and stuff like that. But um, but back to what you were saying in terms of making content, and this is, I guess, to me, kind of a crucial element is what there's this discussion of making content, and when the comic book is your content, the problem with that is that it is so labor intensive that it's almost easier and faster to make a video than it is to make a comic.
Yep.
You
I
know?
mean, like we're already like 40 minutes in, and we have a drawing that's like kind of almost done. Like my guy's physics doesn't really work here, but it still looks cool, so I'm sticking with it. But yeah, like if we could somehow sell this and make money off this drawing that we're doing right now, then that's like, why not just do that? Why would I go and spend 80 hours making a comic book when I could just hang out with a homie for an hour, draw something, and then print that out 20 times, sell them for 20 bucks a pop or whatever.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, if you make a video, or if you make a podcast, like, I love the idea, like, I love to talk about art, I love to talk about comic books, I love to talk about all that stuff. And I thought, like, during the pandemic, same thing you mentioned, I had this idea, like, I'm gonna make a podcast, and I wrote up all these different ideas, and I was thinking, hey, that, over the years, with the history I have, I felt like I had something I could contribute, that I could put out there, that might be helpful to people and maybe make their artistic journey easier. And then I started recording it, and then I was like,
Really?
yeah, I started recording it. I bought all the equipment, I bought the mic, I plugged it into my computer, I wrote down a list of what I was going to talk about, and I started doing it. And I recorded like 3 episodes because I wanted to have 5 episodes before I launched. And then I started listening to them, listening back to them, and I started thinking to myself, this would be fun to do. I mean, I thought, already from listening to them, I'm like, oh, I kind of understand what I could probably do better. Like, I could, the way I enunciate, the way I do certain things, in terms of how I speak on them and all that. And then I was like, oh, but I'm going to need to gather some content to support some of the stuff I'm talking about. And then I'm like, okay, then I'm going to need a logo for my show. And then I'm going to need, and I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I haven't drawn anything on any of my comic ideas since I started this.
Yep.
Yep. And that kind of scared me a little bit. I was like, wait a second. Am I a wannabe podcast influencer? And there's nothing wrong with that. That's cool. I mean, I listen to a lot of podcasts and I enjoy them.
Right.
And video stuff, I think it's awesome too. But I was like, am I that person? And then I had to kind of be like, well, where's my time? I only have a certain amount of time. I have a full-time job, I have kids, and I want to spend time with them,
Yep.
But I also want to put my all into whatever comic project I do, So then I started saying, I'll find a middle ground, which is that I'll guest on people's podcasts. So hey. I stopped my podcast concept. I'm literally looking at the mic right here in my office, and it's all sad.
I was gonna say, are you talking into that mic right now?
No, I should bring it out though, because it's serious. I mean, it has. I even bought the little.
Show the mic. Put it on camera.
The spit thing. Okay, I have to go grab it.
That's funny. My mic is sitting over there, all sad. Oh, now I'm making him do stuff. He's gonna be so mad.
That was where it was, but I think the kids have taken it.
Oh, okay.
But anyways, it is a full legit, like, it moves. I got the thing for when the spit protector thing.
Yeah.
So
you don't fancy arm on it.
Yeah. So you don't get the clicks with your, when you go high and low and stuff like that.
Sure.
But anyways, the point I'm trying to make with it, man, is that I started thinking to myself, it would be better for me to appear on other people's shows. So actually, over the last year, I've appeared on different people's videos and podcasts and stuff like that. And I feel like in some ways I'm more beneficial that way.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that ties in perfectly to me saying, like, hey man, you want to make a video?
And I was like, yeah, I do. Because I was like, you know, um, it's a lot
Perfect.
easier for me to appear in this and contribute in a way, and
Right.
then, you know,
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate you sharing. Yeah, that's something that I've come to label as, or I've heard the term, and the term makes me cringe a little bit, but like it's a shiny new object syndrome, where like,
yeah,
oh, this cool thing over here, I'm gonna go do that, which is like how I started doing like augmented reality stuff and public art stuff. Like, oh, cool, like I could get a check from the city if I make art, and I did, and it happened, and like, okay, cool, but yeah, that book is still not getting done. Um, so yeah, it's like so many other things. You got to decide like where your time is going to be most valuable, kind of a thing. I totally get it. Thanks for
well,
sharing.
you know, that's the weird thing too, because it's like it's a combination of factors, right? You say to yourself, what is most enjoyable for me to do, right?
Hmm.
It could be um, like what's the most satisfying as a creative person. And it's like you're saying, it's the shiny thing. You might look at like this new technology and be like, oh man, I would love to create, I have a good idea for something that would work in that space. So it's attractive in that sense, right? But like you're also, when you're also thinking stuff like what's closest to the money, right? Like if I make something, how do I leverage my creativity where I get the satisfaction creatively, but then I also make something that has value to other people, right?
Yep.
And a monetary value. So it's weird. It's like it's a combination of factors, I think, that all of us sort of deal with,
Hmm.
and then you're thinking, I want to create something, but where do I want to put that labor into? Like which creative itch do I want to scratch? But then which of those itches gets me closer to something that will give me the freedom? And we all know the freedom comes from a financial thing,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
The
it's like finding, like, you're saying that the city's giving you a check. It's like, where are you as I'm putting this out there as a rhetorical question, but are you as excited about that as you are about your comic projects? But when the check hits, you're like, man, that does kind of feel good to get paid to do something, you know,
Absolutely,
creative, you know?
absolutely.
Hey
Yeah,
man, this piece turned out pretty good, man.
yeah, right. This is halfway decent. So we know what we're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, man. I feel like, I didn't know how it was gonna go down, but you
You're like, oh man, this dude's gonna ask me to draw something. It's early on a Sunday. I'm hungover.
no, 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 not wasn't that bad. But I
Okay.
mean, I was kind of like, when I read that we were gonna do it on a different drawing platform, I was like, let's do it. Let's see where this
Yeah.
takes. You know?
Let's break something. Yeah, no, I hear you. Yeah, this is I'm not I'm there's it's kind of surprising to me like who does know about this. Like there's this group of drawing people that I hang out with on Wednesdays, and you're more than welcome to join. It's called Ink and Drink Long Beach, and I'll send you the link later. They're on Instagram and all that, and we just hang out every Wednesday, pretty like around 8 o'clock. But you can technically draw once you have the link, you can draw at any time. But
Hmm.
there's basically a checkerboard. Everybody gets a square or a couple, and then they just draw whatever they want and hang out and talk shit over the Discord platform. But those are all guys that are illustrators, graffiti writers, people doing stuff on paper, and they ended up doing this to like as a way of hanging out during the pandemic, like the way that I was doing it with Evan. But this is like the first time I saw it. It was like all concept artists using this, and it's all like now I'm hanging out with a bunch of like people that are doing like tactile traditional illustration, but they're using this thing to
Hmm.
draw. Um, so yeah, it's kind of interesting to see like who uses it and how they use it, like what's the go-to when you're working on it. Before we go, man, I wanted to I'm curious about more of the origin of Karl and getting into homage. What's because there you post and I don't know how it feels it feels like a subtle brag, and I would totally do the same thing. But like you have pictures of like early days in comics of like you hanging out with like Liefeld and is it Liefeld or Liefeld?
It's Liefeld.
Liefeld.
Yeah.
So like you hanging out with him and like all the image guys and McFarlane and stuff. Like what's that journey like? What's the connection from homage to working on image books? Like what's that stepping stone? What's that bridge?
Um, I I don't think, just first off, I don't think it's a subtle brag when it's your reality. You
Gotcha.
know, that's my history,
Fair.
and that's the life I live. So to me, it's kind of, it's not really, it's just my life. It's just, that's the life I had, you know. And so yeah, I mean, with Homage Studios, this was the artists Jim Lee, Will Spartasio, Scott Williams, and Joe Chido. So I joined up with them really pretty early on in their careers, and obviously it was early in mine, you know. So I that was the first time, you know, I'd been around guys that said they wanted to do comic books, but I'd never been around people that actually made comic books. So it instantly became really apparent to me that these guys are no fucking joke. I mean, they get up and they crank, and they're very dedicated to what they're doing, and they're also super knowledgeable. And I realized that a lot of people kind of talk out of the side of their head. Like, this is, you know, when I was growing up, you know, I had people telling me this knowledge and that knowledge, but they, you know, and I appreciate a lot of it was great stuff to hear. But when you see people actually doing it, the reality is, you have to sort of adjust to that reality. Like, this is how it really gets done, you know?
Mm,
And so, you know, working with those guys, went on a really long run of books. And it was, you know, had some ups and downs, but I learned a lot from them, you know, and it was great being a part of that, you know. And then I worked with Rob for quite a few years. I did the book Blood Strike with him. It was kind of, that's the most well-known one we did together. And
mm.
then we published books together in the 90s as well. And, you know, I think if you go to Rob's podcast, I don't know if you listen to his podcast at all.
No, I
Uh,
haven't.
it's pretty fantastic, man. And I think a lot of people have a perception of him that comes from when he was, um, he was like 21 years old and he was like a millionaire, a self-made millionaire. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And
That's
so people have this. There's a lot of hatred for him because that's an amazing thing to happen to somebody. You know what I mean? If you're 21 years old and you became a millionaire through your own work,
yeah,
now come on, you know, I mean, that's gonna give you a different perception of reality, you know.
right, right.
But the one consistent thing about him is that the dude really loves comics, you know. And in his podcast, I think people finally get to see the person that I've known over the years, which is someone who is, the dude is a crazy historian of comics, man. I mean, this dude
That's
knows
awesome.
all about comics, and he has a true love for him. He's not like one of these dudes who's like, well, I just happened to draw on and I fell into this. Now he's like a dude who was like, I wanted to make comics because I love them, you know?
Right.
And so, yeah, you definitely check out his podcast. It's called Raw Observations. Um,
Nice.
you know, he gives me a couple good shout outs in there. So I appreciate that, you know? But yeah, I mean, uh, looking back at it, it's like, you know, for a lot of people, that was their childhood, you know, reading those comic books and stuff like that. To this day, you know, I'll have people that are like uh, grown up adults, you know, they'll come to me and they'll be like, hey, yeah, this was my favorite comic when I was a kid. Can you sign it? And other than making me feel extremely old, you know, it's still really fun to do that, you know, to know that you had an impact on people, you know.
Nice.
And, but to me, I'm still, in my mind, I feel like I'm still that person who started in comics. I always
Sure.
kind of this mentality of like, not what I did, but what's next. And that's always what I'm thinking about.
That that's a real poignant way of looking at it. I think to a certain degree I have the habit of like putting comic book creators, you to a certain extent, like on a pedestal. Like I feel like today is kind of a coup for myself, but like that's why I say like it feels like a brag. So it's a good reality check, and I appreciate you sharing that. It's just like that was just like working at that time. That was just getting a gig and doing the thing that you loved, and just happened to be like with these people that do it hardcore. And like, yeah, your world view would absolutely shift if you were doing something at 21 and it was your hard work, and then that suddenly made you a millionaire. That's bonkers. I can't even fathom that. There was one other thing I wanted to ask you, and I'm blanking on it.
Things I want to mention though, something you said right there is anybody that goes out and tries to make their creative vision a reality, I consider them to be, we're all in the same boat. Do you know what I mean? Some people steer that boat a little differently, when they're doing it, but ultimately you and I are the same. You got this idea, you want to make this idea at the highest level possible. You want to create an elite level version of what you're doing, right? So I mean, that to me is something that I learned too, was that these are, any comic book artists out there, or any artists out there for that matter, I never saw someone as being above me or below me. I look at us all on this kind of flat plane, and I know a lot of people don't feel that way, but I do feel that way, which is that we all are chasing a vision, right? So I think that's important for artists in general to keep that in mind, which is that you're just one project away from, if notoriety is something you seek, there are opportunities for you to get notoriety, right? But if you're chasing a vision, you're always one project away from finding that vision. So in that sense, we're all the same, right? It's just, what level do you chase it at? How hard do you go at it? And I think that's always the limiter, the determiner, or what have you.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks so much, man. That's such a good perspective. I was going to say earlier that I didn't realize that Rob had a podcast. Just because of like the way that my algorithms are working. That hasn't come across, but I will give that a chance. I'll give that a listen. Thank you for the heart to heart. Thanks for making time today. I think that's probably a great point to finish off, or finish this at, or tie this up at. Do you want to sign this real quick, and then we'll call it a day?
Sure. And thank you for having me, man.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
Appreciate you setting this up. This was a lot of fun for me. And I hope you're going to invite me again,
Yeah, absolutely. I'm thinking about like, oh, maybe I'll do this every time that like I have a book I want to produce and publish. Like I'll just get my friends together, and then we'll just draw something together. Talk about comics, talk about life, talk about all the art we're watching or reading, making, all that good stuff.
Whenever you start that full podcast, man, remember, I'm open as a guest.
You got it. All right, thanks so much, Karl.
Absolutely, man.